Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Rank, where I climb the Online Series 12 ladder and provide live commentary as I go. In the previous episode, we featured a very powerful hyper offense team with Kyogre as well as Choice Specs Calyrex-S Shadow Rider, so we'll be playing a couple more games with it today. Details for the team are in the description below, and it is a brand new rank season, and as you may have noted, I haven't posted that much in the last couple of days because I was away, and honestly, it feels really weird for me to even go like 1 or 2 days without posting videos, and I went like, what, 3 or 4 this time around, so it feels good to be back. I know it wasn't a very long break for me, but I just really love making these videos, and so, yeah, details for the team are in the description below. We're still fighting through Great Ball and Ultra Ball tier as we, start the new rank season. So looking forward to the teams that we're going to go up against today. And yeah, thank you so much as always for watching. If you enjoyed, please show your support by leaving a like. I'd really appreciate it. And question of the day, obviously there's more Gen 9 hype, especially with the trailer that came out recently. So I'm curious how you would rate the legendary Pokemon out of 10 given what we know so far from it. For me, I actually thought the designs were super sick. And so right now, like, I think, for me, I'd rate them like an 8 or a 9 just purely off design and how cool they look. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and let's get started. Alright, first game of the day, and we're up against a really cool Groudon Necrozma Dusk main team here with Umbreon, Venusaur, Amoonguss, and Cresselia. Very much actually reminds me of the team that finished second at Worlds in 2019, especially with the Umbreon here. So my first thought is that Specs Calyrex is really powerful. It is just a lot of damage into pretty much everything other than Umbreon. Umbreon's actually probably the Pokemon I'm most worried about, just because of its ability to take the Astral Barrages potentially and, resist it. Trick Room is the other thing I'm worried about here. My opponent has 2 potential Trick Room users in both Cresselia and the Necrozma. So, if we want to deny Trick Room, Whimsicott has Taunt. That's a good start. Helps out against Cresselia. I think in this game, I'm down for a Whimsicott plus Calyrex lead. Like, if you go Groudon Venusaur, I can just Tailwind. If you go with Cresselia, I can Helping Hand Astral Barrage, or I can Taunt. If there's a Umbreon on the field, I can Moonblast the Umbreon and even switch the Calyrex out potentially. So I'm okay with Whimsicott, Calyrex, Kyogre in the back. The question is what I want my last one to be. It's between Venusaur, Aleki or Kartana here. I think it should be Kartana just because, like, electric attacks here aren't necessarily amazing, given that my opponent has a Groudon, they have an Amoonguss, and then, like, one of the best values of Aleki on this team is being able to, like, one-shot Pokemon, but my opponent has a very bulky team here. But this is a really cool archetype, honestly. We've seen a lot of, Groudon, Venusaur recently, but Cresselia, Umbreon, and the Necrozma, my opponent's team, are all pretty underplayed. So it's actually going to be Umbreon and Venusaur. Okay. Now, this is a cool lead. It gives my opponent the flexibility to just switch Umbreon out on turn 1, or they could switch a Venusaur out on turn 1, right? I think the play that I lean towards here is actually going for Moonblast onto the Umbreon and then switching out. So if you're my opponent right now, you could just pivot the Umbreon out into Groudon immediately. I could actually just go for a Tailwind and Astral Barrage anyway. It's a little bit tempting because it would punish a Groudon switching so heavily. Moonblast into Umbreon, and then switching out Calyrex is the other play I'm thinking about, to just chip away at Umbreon. So, I think I'm down for that, actually. I'll Moonblast into Umbreon and switch into Kartana here. Because I think right now my opponent, if you were to switch Umbreon out, would maybe consider a G-Max Vine Lash or a Sleep Powder into the Calyrex slot. And if Umbreon stays in, it gets the Moonblast off, which is really significant chip damage for the late game. This is the best case scenario. Okay, they just protect Venusaur. Perfect. So I just get a free Moonblast off, essentially. I imagine they're going for a Foul Play or a Snarl here onto the Kartana slot, so we'll see which one it is. It is going to be Foul Play, but I think we should survive that. Nice. Okay. So now my opponent has the option of switching Umbreon out into Groudon, like I mentioned. Tailwind here is always really safe. Guarantees that I can outpace my opponent. I'm actually pretty interested in the idea of clicking Tailwind and then, like, Aerial Ace here into the Venusaur. Because the idea of Aerial Ace is that it breaks the potential Focus Sash, and then really paves the way for Calyrex to just come in and sweep the game. Especially now that we've gotten the chip damage we've needed onto Umbreon. But I also think we can get away with just Tailwind here, and then go for a Sacred Sword onto Umbreon. Okay, Umbreon does have Protect here, so this is where Aerial Ace would have been a little bit nicer, but if you're not switching out into Groudon here, I'm actually not sure how much damage you can do into the Kartana. Your best bet is clicking Earth Power right now. So there's Sacred Sword into Protect. And it's just Sludge Bomb into Whimsicott, which I'm totally okay with. Okay. They do get the Poison. That's a little bit less than ideal, I would argue, but it's fine. Now I can go into just Calyrex Shadow Rider. This is where things get a little bit interesting, though, because this next turn I have, you know, Expanding Force onto the Venu. Umbreon just revealed Protect, so if you're Umbreon right now, like, the big question is, do you consider switching out into Groudon? Because one play I could make is just Astral Barrage and Sacred Sword into the Umbreon slot. I'm honestly decently okay with that. A Beast Boost here also allows Kartana to just snowball the game out of control. Given that they're Focus Sash and Sludge Bomb, I don't even know if they'll have Weather Ball in the Venusaur. Okay, Umbreon does switch out this time around. Probably into Groudon now. Oh, it's actually Cresselia. Okay. It's fine by me. Let's see if Venusaur commits a max here. They do. Okay. Vine Lash is going to hurt, but the thing is that Kartana is actually not affected by it at all. And even though Kartana's taken a lot of damage from that foul play, we're still in a position to potentially Dynamax it in this game. The Astral Barrage here is just going to be absolutely huge. One thing I could have considered was actually clicking Leaf Blade with the Kartana to cover for any switch-ins, which may have been a little bit better here than Sacred Sword. So, Specs Astral Barrage there. Does so much into Cresselia. No Berry on Cresselia either, so Sacred Sword here should just get the KO. Okay, cool. And this most importantly gives us an attack boost as well via Beast Boost. And so that's what this team does so well, right? Kartana and Calyrex can both just snowball damage so quickly. Vine Lash does a hefty amount, but not enough to KO me after one chip of Vine Lash. And I can even consider Dynamaxing Calyrex this next turn. So 67 down to 38. That actually does 39 damage. Oh, sorry, 67 down to 30. That's 29 damage. In my head, I was doing it as 77. So I can survive another chip of Vine Lash, which is pretty critical. But I think I'm going to want to Dynamax one of these two Pokemon next turn. Groudon comes out now. Like, you could obviously Protect with both right now. Calyrex can take one more chip of Vine Lash. I still have 2 turns of Tailwind left, which is also very valuable here. No boosts. And I've got an attack boost on the Kartana. So Specs Astral Barrage. I could always go into Kyogre, right? Which is decently powerful. The play I want to make is to go into Kyogre here. That sets up the Rain, Dynamax, and Airstream into the Venusaur slot. Basically, the logic here is even if you end up max guarding the Venusaur, I'm not sure Groudon can actually KO the Kartana with the Dynamax here. With the Precipice Blades or a Fire type attack. This also changes the weather, right? And winning the weather war against Venusaur is always valuable. So the one weird thing in this game is like choosing to Dynamax when I'm already such low HP with both Kartana or Calyrex. Calyrex Dynamaxing there wouldn't have really been that valuable. Although, you know what's one play I could have made? I could have maxed Calyrex and gone for max Psychic onto Venusaur and then just Leaf Blade into Groudon. I guess I wasn't 100% sure whether or not a +1 Leaf Blade would KO Groudon, but you would think so, right? So that actually was probably the best play, but Groudon protects here, so this should allow us to win the game. That being said, like, okay, I guess the other thing I didn't mention was that they could have been Koba Berry there on Venusaur, but they were playing like it was Focus Sash. And Koba would make a lot of sense on that team as well. And it's not like Koba Venusaurs don't run Protect, but even if they were Koba there, like, it didn't really look like Venu had a great way to actually deal with the Kartana in this game, especially given that they prioritized Sludge Bombing Whimsicott earlier in this game. But this could have been a little bit cleaner, I think. In the end, like, it doesn't end up really mattering, but, you know, you always want to figure out ways to, like, just make more optimal plays. And like I said, when I went for Sacred Sword onto the Umbreon slot there, Leaf Blade would have probably just been better to cover for all options. So, Umbreon was really scary here, and one of the upsides of Umbreon is that it's very good into Calyrex Shadow Rider, because Calyrex just really can't deal too much damage into it. But now we can just Water Spout and go for Max Overgrowth here onto the Groudon. Groudon just protected, so we'll just go for the knockout onto that. I guess technically Groudon could go for the double, Even then, though, I don't think there's really any way for my opponent to win because Kyogre Water Spout just finishes it off. But is there ever a world in which I lose by targeting Umbreon there? Probably not, even if you're like Posho Berry Groudon. Like, Groudon shouldn't KO Cortana, but since Groudon just revealed Protect and we have so many resources here, I figured there's really no way we could lose. Even if they had gotten the double Protect off, I'd still get a Water Spout into the Umbreon slot, and even if that doesn't knock out, the next turn it's Calyrex plus Kyogre, and I can just click Astral Barrage and Water Spout. So, didn't really think there was a way to actually lose this game, but targeting Umbreon there, I guess, slightly more correct. But, you know, sometimes in these end games, it's like, you could play in any different kind of ways, and you'd be fine. But in that position, I think there's actually really no reason to target Umbreon, since, like, Posho on Groudon is not really a thing, and then Assault Vest is clearly not on Groudon either, so this is the Cresselia moveset. We've got Mental Orb with Ally Switch, Moonblast, Trick Room, and Skill Swap. Safety Goggles Umbreon with Protect, Foul Play, Moonlight, and Wish, so no Snarl or Yawn, which is interesting. It's actually Leftovers Groudon, 112 speed. 112 critically, if you're at +2, you can outspeed, you know, Calyrex and Zacian. Precipice Blaze, Rockslide, Fire Punch. So they actually did have Fire Punch lefties, is interesting. It was Sash Venusaur, and as I mentioned, they did not have Weather Ball, but they did have Earth Power here. Koba on the Amoonguss, that's where the Koba was, and then Policy on Necrozma. So, yeah, Calyrex was really good into this matchup, but my opponent dealt with it effectively by going with this Venusaur Umbreon lead. If they let anything else, I think Calyrex actually just snowballs out of control. So they did a really good job recognizing that, you know, Calyrex is the primary threat to their team comp here. So, yeah, really cool team here, and unfortunately just not the best matchup for Necrozma, given its matchup into Calyrex, but I think this Pokemon is definitely underplayed right now. So, let's look for another. Oh my gosh. The beginning of the season is still so wild. We've got Solgaleo Kyogre with Latias, Pheromosa, Amoonguss, and Ditto. So the first thing I noticed is that their Calyrex matchup is honestly terrible. Like, I feel like Whimsicott plus... the question is, do I want to use Calyrex in the early game or in the late game? Because even a single Astral Barrage to start should be really strong. What are the main things I want to watch out for? Latias setting up Tailwind, Speed Swap from Pheromosa, or coaching from that. I don't think there's any potential Wide Guard users on my opponent's team, so this should just be Choice Specs Calyrex, like, demolishing everything. Tailwind is the one thing to worry about. Like, what's interesting is I could just go Indeedee and Calyrex here and just go for Follow Me with the Indeedee. What I don't want, though, is for my opponent to, you know, get something KO'd and to have Ditto replace whatever is coming in to replace the Calyrex. So, I think Whimsicott's just the best approach here in the early game. Set up Tailwind. The thing is, I almost don't want to bring out Calyrex this early because it's so strong in the late game. But I think my opponent has so few answers into it that it might just be worth bringing in the early game. What would be their best answer into it? Maybe like Solgaleo plus Amoonguss? So I'm going to go Whims, Calyrex, Kyogre. And for the last one... I actually like Regieleki a little bit more here because it's a little bit stronger into both of my opponent's restricteds in Solgaleo and Kyogre here. So, yeah. Early season when you're still in Great Ball / Ultra Ball tier is really just wild because you run into all these really interesting teams. And, you know, the restricted duo on the last one, super cool to see, and then this one as well, certainly not a very common one. Although Kyogre Solgaleo has been explored a little bit in the format. It's Solgaleo plus Latias. You know, it's funny, I just talked about Wide Guard users. Solgaleo does get Wide Guard here. Huh. The thing is, though, like, do I actually worry about Wide Guard? I feel like I should. I also don't actually need a Tailwind here. Like, truthfully, the play I want to make is Helping Hand, Dynamax, and Phantasm, and just one-shot Solgaleo. It could be Focus Sash, Latias. You could have Ally Switch or Icy Wind. Yeah, honestly, I'm going to go for it. I'm just going to Helping Hand, Max, and Phantasm. Because my opponent doesn't have Ghost Resistances or Immunities. But Solgaleo does get access to Wide Guard, and I don't see what the Calyrex Shadow Rider answer on my opponent's team is, right? They have to have Wide Guard on Solgaleo. Even, like, there's not that much that can actually go wrong for us here, right? I guess the worst case would be Solgaleo Dynamaxes and survives the Helping Hand Phantasm. Okay, they are Dynamaxing. Them surviving would be fine, because then the question is, do you get the KO onto the Calyrex Shadow Rider? I'm actually I don't think a +2 Max Quake would get the knockout in return. And if that's the case, then that's fine. Next turn I can just Tailwind and Phantasm again. But this turn one, like, Fear of Wide Guard got me a little bit worried, especially with Latias just providing support. And I wanted guaranteed damage. And if they don't Dynamax on that turn 1 there, I think we just win the game immediately, right? Oh, that actually just also works. I wasn't sure how defensive Solgaleo would be there, but even if you are really defensive, I have no idea what that damage calc is. Just because it's not that common to Dynamax Calyrex Shadow Rider, but this is what this team can do, right? We essentially should win the game off that first turn now. I don't see how my opponent can come back. Your best play is to Icy Wind or Tailwind here with Latias. Yeah, you go for Tailwind, sure, but now Whimsicott just has priority Tailwind of its own. So, my opponent's team honestly just does not have a Calyrex answer. And that's why having resistances and immunities to a single Pokemon that's really common in the format is important, right? Okay, Ditto comes out. This is the other unfortunate thing about Ditto, right? Like, you don't necessarily have full control over when you can, like, copy, or what you can copy, unless you're, like, directly making a switch, right? So, the interesting thing about them bringing it out here is that you can actually go for a taunt onto my own Whimsicott now. But it's like, okay, then what? Where do you really go from there, right? This game actually isn't over though, so let's actually be a little bit careful, because I can theoretically get swept by Kyogre in the back. All we need to do in this game is get up Tailwind. So right now, if you're my opponent, you'll taunt Whimsicott. I'll just swap Whimsicott out right now, go out into Kyogre. And I'll just go for Phantasm onto the Ditto slot. The reason I want a Phantasm Ditto is because there's no resistances there. And yeah, like, one of their ways to win is recognizing, hey, I can use my Ditto to sweep you, right? But that only works if I KO the Latias slot. Oh, if they ally switch here, though. Wait, no, I targeted the Ditto slot anyway, so we're fine. Yeah. They just go for Draco. Okay, cool. The only weird thing about this is they actually now will be able to copy me, but that's fine. I don't really care about them copying Kyogre. Yeah. Basically, like in this matchup, and just in general, when you fight against Ditto, you have to be always thinking about, okay, what can the Ditto copy on my end, and what value can my opponent get from copying said Pokemon? So in this matchup, them copying Calyrex Shadow Rider is actually a really, really big issue, right? So I have to be a little bit careful about that. Okay, so their Ditto comes back out. It's going to copy Kyogre here. So it could have been a little bit more optimal to stay in with Whimsicott. I just didn't want to get hit by a taunt and like an Icy Wind. Even if I guess they did that, though, what would really happen? I would just make the switch next turn. There is a world in which it's Focus Sash Ditto, though. Although they have Pheromosa on their team, so I feel like it's got to be Sash on the Pheromosa. 2 turns of Tailwind left on their end. We should expect them to be Choice Scarfed as well. So you can go for a Water Spout or an Origin Pulse. I'm not even sure Latias can pick up a KO right now. Honestly, here, I'm actually down to just Protect. And switch into Regieleki. Yeah. So basically the idea here is Calyrex is going to get outsped, right? I Protect. I'm fine sacrificing Regieleki. Latias essentially does no damage now. We've only seen 2 moves from it so far, which are Tailwind and Draco Meteor. I'd expect maybe an Icy Wind, maybe a way to activate the weakness policy on Solgaleo. But essentially I want to sacrifice the Aleki here to get a free switch into Whimsicott. That's exactly what they're going to do. The Ditto also moves before Latias there, so it should confirm Choice Scarf. Aleki is like valuable in the late game against the Kyogre here, but Calyrex can just pick up like a knockout onto Latias and deal so much damage into the opposing Kyogre. So this just grants me a free switch in now. So now I can go to Whimsicott. I guarantee get Tailwind up. I know you can't Protect with the Ditto because you're Scarfed, and then your Tailwind's about to expire as well. So it always feels a little bit weird to switch out your Dynamax Pokemon, but in this game I think it makes sense. So here, I'm just going to click Origin Pulse for chip damage on top both, and Tailwind. And even if you knock out my Kyogre here, I'm still feel okay. Latias actually reveals Protect. Okay, so it's Protect, Draco, Tailwind, and a 4th. Okay, Whimsicott gets Tailwind here. And they're just going to Water Spout. Perfect, no problem. The other thing with them being Scarfed and locking themselves into the Water Spout is that, like, Kyogre's just going to do, you know, not very much damage following this turn, right? So, Origin here into their Kyogre. That's maybe a crit. Yeah. Although, truthfully, I don't think it makes much of a difference in this end game. Now what I can do is actually just Water Spout and Moonblast into the... I'm actually fine just targeting the Ditto slot. Because, like, Calyrex is always going to win 1v1 against the Latias. And Latias could go for a double protect in this position, whereas we know the Kyogre on their end right now is Choice Scarf. Or I should say the Ditto is Choice Scarf, right? Cool. If we didn't get the critical hit, I probably would then target the Latias with Moonblast, I would think, because the Kyogre's damage output is just still pretty low. And, like, all I need to do is wait for Calyrex to come in and click Astral Barrage, right? But this was always going to be a really big uphill battle for my opponent. The one thing we needed to avoid in this game was basically my opponent getting Tailwind up and then letting their Ditto copy my Calyrex Shadow Rider. If we can avoid that, then we're good. But that it can actually be really scary, right? Because if you look at the team that we have, it's actually very Calyrex Shadow Rider weak. The goal is to just knock out your opponent's Calyrex before they get a chance to move. So, yeah. Anyway, now we can just click Blizzard, Moonblast, and maybe if we miss Blizzard, it will take another turn, but not really much my opponent can do here. I just wonder what their Calyrex Shadow Rider matchup is, right? It's just a really tough Pokemon for their team to go up against, in my eyes. So, part of the debate on turn 1 was also whether or not I should have Dynamaxed, right? But, I just wanted to, like, do a lot of damage in a Solgaleo. Either get a one-hit knockout guaranteed if it doesn't Dynamax, and if it maxes, like, there is the chance that it's Assault Vest, right? And in that world, then it would have survived, but then Latias doesn't really do anything that meaningful other than Tailwind, and because we're naturally faster, even if they Tailwind, the next turn I can just click Tailwind with my own Whimsicott. So, yeah. Calyrex was just absolutely amazing there, but it wasn't even Choice Specs Calyrex coming through. It was just regular Calyrex and my opponent not really having resistances or immunities to it. So, once again, that's why, especially in restricted formats, it's often really valuable to have, like, one Pokemon that can be super good into a specific restricted that's popular, right? So, like, Gastrodon into Kyogre, for example, super valuable. Having Umbreon in that previous game, actually, in Game 1, is really valuable in Calyrex. And when you don't have something like switch into Calyrex, it can make the game, like, a huge uphill battle for you. So, yeah, let's look for another. Okay. Third game here, and it's actually the Kyogre Groudon duo, which is really cool, with Weezing, Rillaboom, Incineroar, and Porygon 2. That's awesome. Okay, so Porygon 2 is the main thing I have to really worry about here because of Trick Room potential. I don't know the items on Groudon and Kyogre here, and I honestly don't really know what to expect either. But one calc that's actually really important if you're using this team is that Helping Hand Water Spout, even in rain, is not a guaranteed KO into Porygon 2. In fact, if they have, like, decent special defense investment, they can always survive. So you have to be very careful about that. Calyrex obviously doesn't love going up against Porygon 2 here either, so we want to be a little bit careful about that. The idea is to try to nuke Porygon 2 immediately with the leads. So, you know what's interesting? I was just talking about how Calyrex is, like, maybe subpar, but it's actually interesting because I could lead Alecki and Calyrex here and be immune to Fake Out. What this would allow me to do turn 1 is just double up onto Porygon immediately with something like a Max Lightning and a Psyshock. Or, sorry, Expanding Force. If they want to get Trick Room, like, they could lead a Fake Out user plus Porygon, which is part of the problem, right? This ensures that I can't get hit by Fake Out. Or I should say I can't get flinched by Fake Out. Inity is also somewhat interesting here. The last thing to consider is Whimsicott. Like, one lead you can actually go with this Whimsicott Kyogre, Dynamax Kyogre, and Helping Hand Max Geyser to one-shot Porygon. But there are a bunch of reasons that doesn't necessarily work out well in this matchup. And the first is because they've got Weezing to change the weather. Or sorry, deny me weather. And then the second is they can switch into Groudon to also change the weather. It is Porygon Incin. That's the lead I was just talking about. Okay, so with this lead, turn 1, Fake Out doesn't really work. I'm leaning towards just Dynamaxing Alecki. We set up Electric Train and then Psyshock into Porygon as well. One sick play my opponent could make is actually switching Porygon out into Groudon right now. That would be really cool. Okay, it's just going to be download here, getting attack boost. But as I mentioned with this team, like, going up against Trick Room is easily the worst matchup you can have, right? So we're just going to do everything in our power to deny them getting Trick Room up here. And Porygon 2 is the only Trick Room user on their team. They stay in, which is a great start for us. Because even if I trade Porygon for Calyrex, I actually find that to be a decent trade in this matchup. Because I have so much offense, right? And Cortana is excellent into both Kyogre and Groudon. Kyogre is also excellent into Groudon and Incineroar. And then Alecki is excellent into their Kyogre. So, like, we're just faster, and our Pokemon deal more damage than theirs do. And we move before they can. And they go for Fake Out into Alecki. Beautiful. So this is exactly why I led this lead, right? It's like, with this, I'm guaranteed to get 2 attacks off into Porygon. Is that a crit? That was actually one of the funny like times where I don't want the crit because this denies me a free special attack boost via Grimnay. Right? But it's fine. I'll take it. Yeah. So it's interesting now because we might actually want to consider switching out the Calyrex right now, especially if Groudon comes in, which would make sense. I can Lightning to try to one-shot the Incineroar. I guess even if I got the special attack boost there, like, would I really stay in against Groudon? Probably not. And late game Calyrex with Astral Barrage is just super strong here. I do have to consider Groudon getting a special defense boost though, right? In this position, I'm down to go out into Cortana. The question is whether or not I actually want to consider a Max Guard, but Lightning should just obliterate the Incineroar right now, and I'm willing to make the Alecki for Incineroar trade, I think. I don't think I have that much to lose from a Max Guard, though. But I just have more offense right now, and, like, all I have to do is go for trades rather than, like, hard winning each turn, right? So I'm willing to go for this. Because Kyogre, Cortana, and Calyrex Shadow Rider is just such incredible offense into my opponent right now. I like this play a lot. Okay, they actually switched the Incin out into... Oh! Their last one is not Kyogre. Okay, that's very smart on their end. I really like that decision. Yeah, Rillaboom's going to cause me a fair amount of trouble here. That's a really nice fourth. Because I think if they had Kyogre as their last one, this game would have just been over. Because Lightning one-shots Kyogre, you bring Incin back in, but then I just bring in my Kyogre, I win the Weather War, and that's it. But because they made the very smart decision to drop Kyogre here in favor of Rillaboom, it keeps my opponent in the game. So I think that's an excellent move. I still think we're in fine shape, but this turn feels awkward where it's like not only do I not get a knockout that I was looking for, but I also change the terrain. So Leaf Blade now does less into Groudon. The upside, though, is that it's a pretty free switch into Kyogre, right? I actually could just go back into Calyrex as well. The scary thing here is they will get a special defense boost via Max Quake, and that's really valuable given the amount of special attackers I've got right now. Ooh, but they targeted the Cortana slot. Okay. So that's one reason to have considered not going for the Dynamax, or sorry, the Max Guard with Alecki. But in that position, like, I was willing to trade, right? Losing Alecki there wouldn't have even been the end of the world. But now that we don't lose it, we're in even better shape. So what do I want to go for here? They do have a special defense boost, so Lightning's definitely not going to KO Rillaboom. You could obviously just fake out Cortana right now. You could also switch Rillaboom back out. I definitely don't want to be taking a Quake with Kyogre or Calyrex right now, so we're going to keep Cortana in right now, I think. And I'm fine clicking, I think, both Aerial Ace here and Max Lightning into the Rillaboom slot. Okay, they stay in. They just go for Fake Out. That's fine. Okay. Max Lightning won't KO Rillaboom here. I could have gone for Airstream there as well. I don't think that would KO with the attack drop. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe it would, though. I also could have considered Max Guarding the Alecki here, right? But I'm okay not going for that. Because to be honest, I don't actually want Alecki at this point in the game. I'd rather have Kyogre. So this next turn is interesting. I bring Kyogre out right now. What my opponent should do is just sacrifice Rillaboom, because you really don't want to sacrifice the Incineroar that you have. Because Incin is so valuable into Cortana and Calyrex, and that's why my opponent switching that out was really smart. I guess I could just go into Calyrex here and actually just click Astral Barrage, but then they could switch their Rillaboom out into Incin relatively easily, and we don't want to give them that opportunity. Whereas Kyogre right now will just KO everything with one. Well, it won't KO both Groudon, but it just pressures with so much damage right now, right? So like I said, if I'm my opponent here, I'm staying in with Rillaboom. I'm staying with Rillaboom, I'm just sacrificing it. But we have to consider the option of them switching out as well. If they go for that, then late game Calyrex is looking pretty powerful for us. Right now, I mean, I could see them making the switch, right? Sure, I'm willing to just Leaf Blade here and Water Spout then. The only scary thing is I still don't know what item the Groudon has. They are going to make the switch. Okay, that's fine by me though, because now you're just like, that's just going to feint to an Astral Barrage. What I was nervous about was Incin in the late game, because it's super good with the against the Astral Barrage, right? Okay. That also looked like Assault Vest to me, and we unfortunately crit them there. Well, that'll just end the game, I would think, but maybe... It was Policy Groudon. I was so curious about the item. That crit then really matters, I think, because now Water Spout should just KO them, whereas if I didn't crit there, Groudon gets a guaranteed knockout onto one of the 2 slots. It would have been a really close finish if we didn't get the critical hit there, so that was a really lucky crit. Okay. Yeah, that was super lucky. Leaf Blade obviously has a higher crit chance. So let's play out the game if we don't get the crit. Like, the main thing is that they were Policy'd, right? And that changes things. Although, honestly, because Kyogre doesn't have any bulk here, we might have just fainted to a max quick anyway. So let's assume that they target Kartana. Or let's play out both scenarios. Let me finish out the game first, though. So let's say they one-shot Kyogre. Then the endgame becomes Kartana plus Calyrex Shadow Rider. And then Calyrex just Astral Barrages to win the game, right? So in that scenario, we're actually fine. If you have targeted Kartana then, instead of the Kyogre, then it's Rillaboom plus Groudon against Kyogre plus Calyrex. It then would come down to the Rillaboom set. Like I said, I'm pretty sure it's Assault Vest given how well it took that Max Lightning. I'm not 100% confident though. But if you are indeed Assault Vest, then it's pretty simple because if you KO, no matter who you KO, Calyrex can always get a guaranteed Astral Barrage to knock out Rillaboom and get free damage onto the Groudon post Dynamax. So I think we were probably fine there anyway, but Policy was like an item I was thinking about in the back of my head, and my opponent actually had it, which is pretty scary, right? So yeah, either way though, these teams have been super, super cool to go up against, and we'll find one last game here. Oh my goodness, there's a Jigglypuff here. We've definitely featured Jigglypuff in Road to Ranked. I think it was probably back in 2015, and so like the main use of it is its ability. It also does get access to Sing. Lapras, Kyogre, Zygarde, Rillaboom, Incin. Okay. So it's a really bulky team. I think, like, to me, this screams like it's a protect the Zygarde kind of team. I wouldn't be surprised if Lapras has Ice Shard to activate Weakness Policy on Zygarde. But it could also just be Gigantamax Lapras, you set up screens, use Jigglypuff for further protection. So if we're aiming to beat Zygarde, what are our best means of offense? Max Hailstorm from Kyogre, especially with Helping Hand support. Astral Barrage and Expanding Force are also powerful here, but they have Incineroar, so we obviously want to be careful about that. Something like an Incineroar Lapras lead is decently powerful for them here. There's a reason to bring a Lecky then, and it's to hard beat something like Incin plus Lapras. Also intrigued by the idea of just leading Kyogre. All of our Pokemon are decent here, and that's what makes things tricky, funnily enough. Okay, Calyrex. I'm gonna go Calyrex, Lecky, Kyogre, Kartana. I don't think we need Whimsicott here because our Pokemon are naturally faster. NDD is decently valuable for redirection and terrain control, but I'm just gonna bring the 4 strongest offensive users on our team here and see how it goes. Like, that's the goal right now. It's always fun to, like, play the team's pre-Master Ball tier, though, because we've run into some really cool things today. And it's Lapras and Jigglypuff. Oh, boy. Honestly, the main thing I'm worried about here is Sing from Jigglypuff, to which I can just Dynamax Lecky and Max Lightning. I just don't want to Dynamax yet is the thing. Right now, like, the things I expect my opponent to go for, maybe switching Lapras out into Zygarde. Like, one of these can switch into Zygarde right now, and that's what concerns me. So I don't want to commit a Dynamax yet before seeing what's switching in. Okay, I fear the unknown, and for that reason I'm going to target Jigglypuff. They stay in with both. Okay. That also works for me, though. I don't really care that much about a Gigantamax Lapras in this game. But maybe those are famous last words. I haven't played against a Jigglypuff in Sword and Shield. So I don't know its full moveset now relative to previous gens. The last time I fought Jigglypuff seriously, or used it seriously, was a couple generations ago. Okay. Well, I'll take it. It's a free Life Orb T-Bolt into Lapras, but that might activate Policy? No. Also... I mean, like, one thing to consider there is obviously them being normal type with Jigglypuff, which, admittedly, similar to when we used Wigglytuff, I'd actually forgotten about. I would still click Astral Barrage there, because I want to cover for a Zygarde switch in. Boy, this is interesting now. I mean, the best play I honestly think is to just Astral Barrage and Electro Web right now. That should still get the knockout onto Lapras and cover for Ally Switch and chip Jigglypuff. Okay. Is that Zygarde coming in? Yep, looks like it. Maybe a Max Guard then? No Max Guard, okay. Cool, so we should get the knockout here, which is fantastic. Zygarde's going to be annoying, but my opponent's playing without a Max after this turn, which is huge. It's good damage on a Zygarde. They actually don't transform, which actually benefits me here. That's super interesting. Okay, so we get a Grenade boost. Leftovers. That's fine. I mean, part of the question right now is thinking about who I want to Dynamax, and the answer is probably Kyogre, because Max Hailstorm just obliterates Zygarde. But, like, it could be interesting to max the... Okay, they bring in Rillaboom. Maxing Calyrex seems wild, but it's actually somewhat intriguing to me right now. I don't know if I can survive a Grassy Glide anyway. We should be able to. Kartana is also a decently appropriate max option, I think. So if I'm my opponent, what am I going for? Grassy Glide right now, straight into Calyrex. And just 1,000 arrows here. So like I want to just max here. Mindstorm into Rillaboom. And just T-Bolt into it as well. Basically, the reason why I feel compelled to Dynamax right now is because Rillaboom's actually really strong against my entire team. This is where me having Indeedee over Kartana may have been better. Or even over Kyogre. The idea of maxing Calyrex here is to just survive a Grassy Glide right now. I sure hope we do. If we get one shot, that's obviously really bad news, but I think this should give us enough lasting power. Okay, beautiful. And we get T-Bolt off into Rillaboom. That's good damage. I would think Mindstorm finishes it off now. Let's see. Ooh, it does not. Okay. That's still okay, though, because as long as Rillaboom can't go for a Grassy Glide for free, that's all I'm looking for right now. And they go for Coil. Okay. Works for me. That Coil over 1,000 arrows actually puts them in a really bad spot, in my opinion. Because they don't really get anything out of it for the turn, and now this next turn is really tough for them. Your best play here is probably to protect Zygarde and switch Rillaboom out into the Jigglypuff right now. To which I say, like I am worried about Mindstorm giving them a free boost. Sorry, not giving them a free boost, like putting them in range. Rillaboom should switch out here in a Jigglypuff, right? This is actually really scary, like, dealing with this Zygarde. I'm going to go for the Mindstorm onto the, like, I don't think they actually need to protect Zygarde right now, because what you can do is switch into Jigglypuff, and the Zygarde's just extra bulky. Yep, there's a switch, okay. Not getting the KO onto Rillaboom there was pretty tough, but I can't say we can really guarantee the knockout in that position. Okay, they protect though, which is really good news for us. This is crazy. Like, I'm really sweating it against a Jigglypuff team right now. That's Sash. Interesting. Very cool. Okay. So your focus, Sash. We've seen Ally switch on the Tough right now. We know Rillaboom's in the back, still waiting for me. Really chipped away at everything at this point, which is obviously pretty good for us. I normally would like be tempted for Phantasm for a guaranteed defense drop, but here I think it's better to just Mindstorm. I kind of expect them to Ally switch here, honestly. Ally switch would not be fun. I think here I am just going to Mindstorm into the Jigglypuff and Leaf Blade into it, because Kartana's pretty good into Zygarde right now. They actually go for Protect onto Jigglypuff. Okay. Well, Mindstorm will guarantee a knockout there, but I'm like actually pretty worried about late game Zygarde sweeping through me because it's so bulky between Coil and screens. So them having Ally Switch made things tougher. If I knew they didn't have Ally Switch, I could consider just doubling up onto the Zygarde slot there. Yeah, we really don't do much, but I guess the bright side is they don't transform. And they go for another Coil, which feels slightly greedy to me, in my opinion. Because, like, you should go for a knockout at this point. Because what I can do now is just simply switch out the Calyrex. But I have to say, this Lapras-Zygarde combination is actually so incredibly, like, impressive. Part of it is, I think, just the strength of, or the bulk of Zygarde in this format. Especially with leftovers and grassy terrain. Now I've got Blizzard from Kyogre, so if we just hit a single Blizzard in this endgame, we should be okay. What's interesting is my opponent being so bulky that they haven't even transformed forms yet. This is also interesting. I'm at +2 special attack, right? So you would think my opponent feels more or less forced to target the Calyrex. They've got 3 turns of Aurora Veil left. The safe play for me, quote-unquote, would be to just switch this out into a Lecky, but I could see them just clicking Fake Out right now into the Kartana slot instead. I think I'm still going to make the safe play, though. A Lecky just gives me no value in this endgame, and I don't even care if they get a +2, because, like, I think it's AV Rillaboom, given that they took the Max Mindstorm earlier, right? So the idea is bring out a Lecky, sacrifice that, bring out Kyogre, protect Kyogre, knock out Rillaboom, then it's a 2v1 against Zygarde. And they go for Glide, which is perfect. I guess, actually, Thousand Arrows now maybe just KOs the Kartana, but that's fine. Okay, Leaf Blade gets the knockout onto Rillaboom there. That gives us a Beast Boost as well. Like, well, we actually do decent damage with Beast Boost and Grassy Terrain. Sub. Ooh. Does that act? It doesn't activate your form, though. So it's Sub, Coil, Protect. It's got to be Thousand Arrows as the last attack, you would imagine. Okay. Yeah, let's just bring out Kyogre right now. I guess the interesting question with Kyogre is, do I actually click Blizzard? Sub makes a lot of sense here. Basically, my opponent's looking to transform here with Zygarde in this endgame. There's 2 turns of Aurora Veil left, right? I might even survive a Blizzard. The thing is, I think it's worth going for Blizzard because I don't actually expect Water Spell to KO here anyway, and Blizzard single target, if it gets to KO, just wins me the game. Okay, so they're not going to go for... And if I miss Blizzard, it's fine, because Kyogre can survive a +2 Thousand Arrows here, I'm pretty sure. Wait, but the Leaf Blade didn't even break the sub. Oh... Okay. Okay. It's the last turn of Aurora Veil from there, and another Leaf Blade should break Zygarde's sub now. I guess, we knew how much Leaf Blade was doing, but I was thinking with the Beast Boost and the Grassy Terrain, we'd surely break through it, but apparently not. That's crazy. Last turn of Aurora Veil, though, which is obviously a big deal. So I'm going to just Protect here. Get some Grassy Terrain recovery. And Leaf Blade again. Protect the Zygarde comps are, like, pretty strong. They're very vulnerable to critical hits, though. And it puts all your eggs in kind of one basket, right? They actually sub again here, don't they? Oh, they don't. Okay. I actually thought that would be a pretty powerful option for them right now. Is that crit? You know, if we lose to this, so be it. It's a really, really cool team. That crit definitely doesn't help me, but I guess it does actually give me a free switch in here. And with that free switch in, I might be good to just click Astral Barrage and... the main thing is, okay, Roarville's stalled out now, but... Water Spout I don't think really does it for me. I mean, I just don't know the Zygarde calcs here, but it's just, I assume, so bulky. And if we don't get the KO onto Zygarde and it transforms, that's a disaster. So, I'm just going to go for the Blizzard and the Astral Barrage here. Because even if we miss Blizzard, we can still win, because Thousand Arrows doesn't KO Kyogre here. So there's single target Astral. Okay, that works. It is Specs Calyrex Shadow Rider. I just expect Zygarde to just be so dang bulky, but in the end, like, I sweat all that just actually for nothing. And in fact, what that actually meant was that the critical hit actually benefited us more than anything. So, yeah. But man, the early season teams, especially when you're not in Master Ball tier yet, are absolutely bonkers, and today's episode certainly highlighted that. So that was a blast, but I had a lot of fun with this one. So thanks so much as always for watching. And yeah, like I mentioned, you know, in the beginning, even when I go a few days without posting, it always like feels a little weird now. So I'm very grateful for all that continue to come out and watch the content, whether it's, you know, every single video that comes out, or just once a week, or even once a month, or once a quarter. You know, makes me happy to just continue making fun content and for you all to come out and keep watching it. So thank you so much. I'll see you all next time. Leave a like if you enjoy. Don't forget to answer the question of the day. And yeah, see you next time. Peace.